English translation. 52nd contact. Monday, 17th May 1976. 047 hours.
It is much more pleasant in here. It is quite cold outside.
Certainly. You have brought two people I have never met before. I had to take the lead again, just as I was over the North Sea where I had something to do.
Oh, you have been busy with something special again? Fine. Yes, I brought two other people with me, Mr. Schutzbach and Mr. Moosbrugger. Mr. Schutzbach lives near Hegnau, and Mr. Moosbrugger lives in Walsertal, Austria. They are both lovable and good people.
I have checked their honesty. Their interest is of an honest nature. Only Mr. Moosbrugger for a moment entertained the thought of what it would be like if he followed you. But that is not important, because it was just his curiosity and his honest interest.
I am to greet you from both, also from Rudi Schultheis from Biel. By the way, he gave me this document here. He wants to ask you if he can trust it or not. How do you feel about that?
It is a pleasure to receive the greetings. Pay them all my joy and gratitude. They shall also be very much greeted by me. But what does that mean in your hand? Do you not want to say anything about it?
No, I want your uninfluenced answer about it.
Sure, then let me see. The document is known to me. It is supposed to be about a message of extraterrestrial intelligence. But it is not. It is a primitive fake.
Then your testimony is consistent with our assumptions. Thank you.
It was my pleasure, but now, look here, you can give the book back to Professor Sloman in Lindau. From a theosophical point of view, it is an extremely valuable work with astonishingly truthful insights. The whole thing is worth good praise. Please pass this on to Mr. Sloman. Despite the excellent quality of the work, however, it should be noted that if the book is to be useful, the composition of the whole should be changed. This means that the arrangement should be carried out differently, because everything is somewhat mixed in. Everything should therefore be classified in the correct sequence. And although the work is surprisingly good and truthful, it should not find entrance into the broad mass of humanity because they are not yet able to grasp and understand all these interpretations and explanations. The work is only suitable for people who have already acquired a higher level of knowledge and understanding. If it were therefore brought to the broad, still uncomprehending masses, then this could cause confusion, which would be very unhelpful for the whole elucidation. The actual understanding of the work will only be found in about 150 to 200 years, according to probability calculations.
Thanks, girl. I will tell Mr. Sloman your evaluation. But now I have a very special question. On the 10th of May, I received a New World prophecy from the Patah Li level, which I have to set up and interpret in poem form. Something now appears in it that is completely unknown to me. These are Indians of giant size who live somewhere in Peru, and who, according to the prophecy, must have attacked a village about 10 days ago. They are supposed to be old Inca enemies, hidden somewhere in the jungle in leaf huts and in an underground tunnel. Do you know anything about these Indian giants? If you could give me some information about them, then I would be very happy, and certainly it would be very interesting for other people.
Sure, the existence of these life forms are known to us. They are not the very distant descendants of an alien race, as is claimed. On average, they reach a height of about 210 centimeters. Their skin color is just as reddish-brown as that of the other Indian breeds. Their hair growth is also red, but partly colored. About 580 years ago, these giants retreated into the depths of the jungle, where they built an underground village and have lived there ever since. But they also live above the ground in huts. However, they are all wild, dress in animal skins, and live from plants and hunting. Recently, they have been worried about their offspring as a result of their wives, so for some decades they have been setting out to kidnap women, especially white ones, in civilized areas. Their pedigree goes back to the Incas, and they are therefore very distant descendants of them. In earlier times, however, feuds broke out between different Inca tribes, in the aftermath of which they fought each other to the death. So it happened also between the Giants and another Inca descendant Indian tribe, which called itself Chanax or Chanca. They fought against each other very much, because the Chanax or Chanca fought against the more pure preserved Inca tribes. The Giants stood on the side of the even more pure-blooded Incas and went against the Chanca, that is to say, Chanax, into the field, in order to bring them heavily into distress and to fight them. About 580 years ago then, until then the Giants had survived, they suddenly disappeared from the society of all other tribes and withdrew deep into the jungle, where they lived a very difficult and deprivation-rich life until then and were considered extinct since their departure. Since they themselves are very distant descendants of the Incas, one can only call them enemies of the Incas if one considers that they were only hostile to the degenerated Incas like the Chanax or Chanca.
That is interesting. You say Chanca or Chanax. Do you not know exactly what they are called?
These are two terms that have always been in use since time immemorial. They were known by both names. There is, however, still a third name, for which I cannot provide you nevertheless with information, because I am not specifically oriented about it.
That does not matter. You have already told me more than I had expected. But now still another question, that is to say two of them. They originate from Mr. Moosbrugger in the Walzertal. What about the astronomical data of the Giza Pyramid, etc.? And does a curse of the pharaohs exist?
I would like to answer your second question first. There is no curse of the pharaohs. This is just a fantastic concoction of legendary nature, as usual created by human beings of the earth, who believe in recognizing some kinds of secrets and mysteries in all things, because of still being caught too much in their religious fantasies, etc. Well, there have always repeatedly been deaths when the tombs of the pharaohs were robbed also by your scientists, because they too conducted robbery of tombs. That can partially be put down to provoked accidents and, on the other hand, to the protection measures of the ancient pharaohs and priests, who were perfectly aware of the upcoming tomb robberies. For this reason, they created, for example, protective provisions and the like. Thus, for example, they let slaves collect the hair spines from the fruits of Ficus indica cactus and had them, the cactuses, poisoned by poisoners. Afterwards, these spines, impregnated with a millennia-durable deadly poison, were embalmed in the bandages of the deceased pharaohs, and thus those who at a later time would come into contact with them, whereby, inevitably, the hair-fine spines penetrated into the skin, killing them.
Fantastic. However, with the hairy spines of Ficus indica, are you talking about those fine as hair spines that grow on the surface of the cactus fruit?
Certainly, but now to the second question. When the pyramids were built, the astronomers at that time were already calculating the further fate of the Earth. According to the derived data from that, the measurements of the pyramids were worked out. The calculations revealed that many thousands of years in the future, a catastrophe would once again threaten the Earth from the cosmos, like at the time of the construction of the pyramids. For indicating the impending catastrophe to the Earth's inhabitants of later millennia, the obtained measurement data of astronomical nature of the distant future was therefore built into the pyramids. That means that they were constructed according to the data and measurements, which will precisely then match with the astronomical data when the catastrophe from space begins to loom anew. Astronomy was very capable in those days, and thus calculated the dates very precisely. They even observed several world crashes in their calculations, and were able to calculate the dates with extremely accurate precision in that manner. As pre-calculated, the Earth did then actually crash and proved the science of those days, meanwhile long gone, to be right. And now the time is slowly fulfilling, since the astronomical measurement data which, as explained, served and were decisive for the construction of the pyramids, are gradually corresponding with the astronomical values of the present time and announcing the thus more than 70,000 years ago prophesied happening. And that occurrence will precisely be then, when the sunlight of a faraway star passes through the tube-like opening of the revelation, which stretches from outside the Giza pyramid to the center in a straight, uninterrupted line and illuminates a particular point. I am not allowed to explain more about it.
But it might be important to know that.
Sure, but I cannot talk about it. If you want, I can explain it to you alone.
Gladly. I will keep silent about it like fish did in the olden days.
Okay, but it shall not yet be today. I will call you for that sole purpose telepathically after submitting this report to you.
Fine as well. But now, how about certain secrets, claimed to have grown up around the pyramids? And how had they been built? Perhaps with machines?
There are no actual secrets to be mentioned, besides these of the existence of the Giza intelligences, as well as the issues around the measurement data in the context of the looming danger and the issue of the starlight, which will, at the given time, shine through the opening of the revelation. The pyramids were not built by telekinetic spiritual forces, as certain earthly fantasists claim, but through tried and tested techniques, as you, however, already know, so I need no more to tell about it.
That suffices indeed, thanks. But I'm still now wondering why you were so en masse circling around above Hinwil during the previous weekend, or shortly before. Did you perhaps lose a golden nothing that you were looking for? It had actually been a really big demonstration. We counted 9 machines, from which, however, you and Quetzal were twice part of, if I picked up your thoughts correctly.
Sure, you are right about that. No, I have not lost anything, not even some weird thing you just called it.
You are making me smile, girl. You have really got me on your toes. A golden nothing means nothing.
I will know how to settle that debt with you. Well, we found out during a surveillance that the Army organization with primitive equipment and dangerous lifting-bladed machines visited several of our landing places and searched for radiation. I mean the landing places where I had landed. Since the possibility of radiation deposition always exists, we have tried to monitor and search and analyze everything. But there was no radiation anywhere. But you may have observed even these primitive lifting blade machines when they made everything unsafe around the 9th hour of the evening a few days ago. Among other things, they also flew around your house.
I know. We have observed the military guys doing it. We did not care much about them, though, because they are not the smartest. But you have offered us a spectacle, which we were very happy about. Which one of you is still hovering northeast with a spotlight?
Quetzal. He wanted to make you happy.
That is what he did with that stunt. It was just great. Please give him our best thanks and greetings.
Sure, he will be very happy.
What I wanted to say. When I recorded the buzzing of your ship on tape and suddenly so many people appeared as if stamped out of the ground, the cantonal police were among them. Now they are also sticking their noses in.
I have still observed this, but it is not very important because they have no fixed clues. But how did your photos come out that you had the opportunity to take shortly before Easter?
You mean the one where they chased you around with that stupid jet fighter? I just wish I could have seen the pilot's damn daffy face. The pictures are quite good, at least I think so.
2 pictures from a series of 17 photographs, taken by Billy on the occasion of a demonstration, flight on 14th of April 1976 at Schmerbühl-Maiwinkel, near Bettsville-Barrettsville, Zurich Oberland, during which their ship was harassed and disturbed by a Mirage jet fighter of the Swiss Air Force.
The pilot had a film or photo camera in his plane, but he was not able to take any pictures with it because I blocked it for him. His face was really very funny to look at. There was incredulous amazement in him. Never before have I seen such a daft face.
I can imagine that vividly. The earthworm looks really often punishably goofy in its astonishment. But tell me, did you not notice anything at 0020 HRs? There was some object high above us that flashed in a very unusual rhythm and passed by. To see if it was an airplane whose flashing rhythm should have been gone, I tried to order the object to extinguish its light, which it did after a short time, perhaps 5 or 10 seconds. So it must have been a telemeter disc or something similar. Because I cannot influence an airplane, I told my companions that too. Do you know anything about this? And by the way, about 10 minutes later, Mr. Schutzbach also saw something, a red light in the constellation of the Big Bear, which went out abruptly.
I did not locate the second object. It was probably at the time when I was already down here. The first one, however, where you turned off the light, was one of our telemeter discs. I had already been informed by the station that it had been influenced by some non-locatable forces and had been driven off course. You should be more careful about these things.
Is it so bad when I take the lights off a speedster like that?
Sure, because the light of the telemeter ships corresponds to a special value and serves the course determination. As you have rightly noticed, it has a certain interval and is very bright. These are radio-like impulses which serve the control. If you now extinguish these, which you consider to be light, by your thought forces, then the telemeter ship gets out of control and it moves out of course uncontrolled, so it must first be brought under control again by the station on the Earth.
Then I will let it be in the future. I really did not think anything of it.
Sure, you could not have known either.
Now one more question. Is it possible for you to give my 2 companions a little demonstration? You know, they are very interested in everything and above all in our task, and a small contribution from you would certainly be extremely valuable for them.
I understand your wish very well, but you know how difficult everything has become in recent times because we are so much stalked. For this reason, I have also informed you that you should be ready between 0030 HRs and 0100 HRs, and then already be summoned here at 2330 HRs. But I want to think about it and consider if I can give a little demonstration. It shall not be a promise.
Good, that is enough for me. Thank you. But would it be possible for you now to give me 2 or 3 pieces of your food, you know? I am thinking of little tablets or whatever. But I do not want to embarrass you, or somehow that you then would starve.
Sure, I can grant your wish, but I do not have anything like that here. The next time I would have to bring it with me, the best would be something similar to what is on Earth, something that can also be produced here.
Thank you. As you think, maybe it is better so, because if it is something strange, then there might be difficulties. You know what the human beings are like.
Certainly. Well, it is time for me now, because I have to get back to the North Sea.
Then go, you nightingale. I almost said night owl, but it does not suit you. You are more like a nightingale, also in singing, by which I mean the voice.
Your compliments are of rare value and very honest.
Thank you. Then take all the flowers of the world as a worshipping testimony, and let their fragrance feel good in joy and love.
You are very kind. I feel very strange.
Even you are very dear. I wish you so much, dear girl. The beguiling scent of the flower world may accompany you in love. Take care and see you soon.
Goodbye, my thoughts will be with you. It is often very...
I only hear the last words of Simyase weekly and the rest of the sentence not at all anymore, because I glide down the anti-gravity shaft and remove myself quickly, sit down on my moped, and drive away, whereby I find that life can sometimes be quite damn funny and twisted. Anita in Vienna would probably say, life is blessed.
My first UFO experience on 17th of May, 1976.
In the middle of May this year, I traveled to Hinwil Zurich Oberland for the weekend with the intention of testing the credibility of the UFO contactee Edie Meyer Billy and finding out more details about his activities. He had invited me to visit him, and I am grateful to him because with his help, I was able to experience exactly what I had long wished for. On Sunday, the 16th of May, 1976, I spent the evening in the Meyer family's living room. I was later joined by Mr. Konrad Schutzbach. Exactly 5 minutes after 22 HHEHers, Mr. Meyer called out to me with the terse remark, "Between 12:30 and 1, what then?" I wanted to know. He simply replied with a casual hand gesture, waving his outstretched hand through the air a few times and continuing to watch the TV program as if nothing had happened at all. For those who are not familiar with the circumstances there, I must add that Mr. Meyer always receives a telepathic pre-announcement before he is ordered to make personal contact with the spaceship pilot Simya-Se. An hour earlier than expected, at 11:30, Mr. Meyer jumped up from his chair as if stung by a tarantula and dashed out of the room into the open air. Curious, we ran after him. Outside the next moment, I also spotted a glittering dot of light traveling across the firmament about as fast as an Earth satellite. Mrs. Instead, Mr. Schutzbach came panting towards us and asked us to come along as quickly as possible, as contact was planned. We soon reached the house again at a run, and when we entered the living room, Mr. Meyer was in the process of changing his clothes. Mr. Schutzbach helped him to fasten the belt of his jeans, and I carefully grabbed the pistol lying on the table and put it in Mr. Meyer's belt pouch. We hurriedly put on warm overclothes to be prepared for the night out, as it was very cold for this time of year. Mr. Meyer soon rattled off in his vehicle, and we followed him in my car. My neighbor gave me the necessary instructions so that we did not miss the connection, because we had no idea where we had to go. First of all, we crisscrossed the village to shake off any pursuers, as Mr. Schutzbach assured me. After several detours, we reached our destination, Dürstein. On the way, however, we had to stop twice and drive back a short distance because we had obviously taken a wrong turn. At times, we drove across country with only the parking lights on. About half an hour after midnight, our leader suddenly stopped in the middle of a country lane. Mr. Meyer explained the situation as follows. For various reasons, which are now known to me, the contact locations have to be changed constantly, so that in most cases Mr. Meyer does not know where he has to go each time. That is why he is remote controlled from the beamship with the help of a computer, so to speak. If he is traveling alone, he is guided directly to the landing site of the beamship. This spaceship is able to land or take off completely silently and invisibly at any point on our globe, both during the day and at night. Of course, the pilot can take protective measures to prevent unauthorized access to the spacecraft or other actions in a corresponding manner, making use of the available defensive weapons only in extreme emergencies. The personal meeting between Mr. Meyer and the pilot Simya-Se usually takes place inside the spacecraft, but also outside in warm weather. Communication takes place in German. The entire conversation is recorded by machine. At a later time, Mr. Meyer receives it verbatim by telepathic means at a moderate pace so that he can write down the protocol by machine. If Mr. Meyer has escorts with him or is being followed, as has already been the case, the computer guidance is canceled near the point of contact. The pilot now personally checks whether the persons present appear trustworthy or not. If the result of this check is negative, the arrangements are changed immediately or the planned contact does not take place. In our case, it took an unusually long time, 20 minutes until the action continued. The reason we were given afterwards was that the pilot had urgent business to attend to in the North Sea area just at the time when the computer stopped working. From there, Mr. Schutzbach and I had been checked by analyzing our thoughts. Meanwhile, we were standing on the aforementioned dirt track, trudging back and forth a little, eagerly searching the vault of the sky in all directions. There was excellent visibility in the starry night. A point-shaped flying object could not escape our attention as it flew straight across the horizon. It flashed incessantly in front of us at short intervals. At first I thought it was an aeroplane, but Mr. Schutzbach, as a private pilot, knew better. He said that the frequency of the flashing light seemed very unusual to him. Mr. Meyer thought it would be possible to determine whether the object was an aircraft or something else. After a few seconds, the flashing light suddenly stopped, and there was no sign of the entire flying object. I was so stunned that I did not really know what to say. Mr. Meyer's subsequent explanation was, I simply ordered the flying object to stop flashing. I would not have been able to do the experiment with an aeroplane. According to Sim Yaseh, who incidentally was not as enthusiastic about the joke as we were, it was an unmanned telemetry disc used for reconnaissance purposes. It had temporarily deviated from the prescribed course after the flashing light had gone out, and therefore had to be brought under control again from the station. At about 0:45 years, Mr. Meyer finally regained telepathic contact with the ufonaut Sim Yaseh. He told us that we should wait here for his return and keep a close eye on the sky, especially to the north. He then traveled alone to the contact location. On his return, he told us that he had traveled about 5 minutes to a clearing in the forest where Sim Yaseh had been waiting for him in the spaceship. As Mr. Meyer walked away from us, I silently wondered what would happen if I followed him to the contact point, which I would have loved to do. Interestingly, Sim Yaseh must also have picked up on these thoughts of mine. Otherwise, she would not have been able to say to Mr. Meyer during the contact conversation, Mr. M thought for a moment about what it would be like if he followed you. But that is not important because it was only his curiosity and his honest interest. Mr. Schutzbach and I now waited patiently outside and kept an eye out. After about an hour and a half, it gradually became too uncomfortable for us, and we preferred to continue our observation in the car. Suddenly, a fiery red disk appeared in a northerly direction just above a forest aisle, hovering in the air, swinging back and forth a little like a pendulum, and then disappearing in a flash. The distance was around 3 kilometers. We measured it on the map during a subsequent daytime inspection. Soon afterwards, a snow-white, more spherical shape appeared at exactly the same spot, moving in a circle in a horizontal direction. During this maneuver, the sphere seemed to triple in size because, like a mirror image, another sphere could be seen halfway down to the left and halfway to the right. Finally, we caught sight of a fourth, somewhat smaller sphere, which detached itself from the central figure like a drop, but did not quite fall to the ground. After a short pause, another spotlight-like disk shone in the same place. It appeared to be coming towards us, as it grew larger and more intense. But after a short time, it shrank to its original size and disappeared from the scene without a trace the next moment. The spectacle of Lumière dans la nuit was finally over. This demonstration was offered to us by Sim Yaseh because Mr. Meyer had kindly asked for it. Mr. Meyer himself did not get to see this performance because he was already on his way home at the time. We soon also heard the rattling of a moped, and Mr. Meyer rejoined us. After a cigarette break, we set off on the journey home, which we did without any detours. I was amused by our pilot's cornering technique. Mr. Meyer only has one arm left. We returned to Meyer's parlor around 3:30 HRs in the morning. For me personally, this was an impressive experience that I will probably never forget. As far as the credibility of this story is concerned, I could tell several more binges. For example, my second UFO experience on the 13th of June, 1976, when we were given permission to take photographs or film, etc. In addition, my witness Konrad Schutzbach can confirm that this report was written to the best of my knowledge and belief. Of course, I cannot blame anyone if they cannot or do not want to accept this story as reality for whatever reason. I can be labeled a fantasist or a crank for all I care, but by no means a liar or a fraud. Hersheg, 15th of June 1976, signed Guido Moosbrugger,